the midst of the preacher's voice was my mom's voice. Scotty, God is calling you. I couldn't put pieces together then. I was too young. I was too immature. But I was not very old. I was very much on the young end of my teen years when I became a pastor. And I began to round up the kids of our neighborhood and begin to have church. The only way I knew to have church. I told them all about the devil, and I told them all about heaven and all about hell, and just really, really harped on the end time stuff. I had read all of the paperback novels. I knew all of what was in those books. I didn't know what was in the Bible, but I knew what was in the paperback prophecy books and assumed it was all in the Bible. Did not know till years later they didn't exactly merge together. And boy, was I winning souls. My mom would smile when she would find out what I was doing, and she would say, yeah, Scotty, God is calling you. God is calling you. I didn't understand it all. In my late teen years, when I graduated high school, I went to college. I was too young to be going to college. My mind wasn't prepared. My soul wasn't prepared. In Illinois, where I was born, it was a little different, and kids started to school a year earlier than here. And I was 16 years old when I graduated high school, and I took off to college, and I was not prepared for that, and I just fell off the deep end. And I began to get a taste of some things that I had never tasted before, and my flesh liked it, and I began to work hard to put distance between me and God. I didn't know who I was. Am I a prodigal? Am I still lost? Am I saved? Am I hell-bound? Is there still hope for me? And I would do everything in my power to try to push myself away from Scotty, God's calling you. He's calling you. Eli, the priest, who has been in disobedience before God, and his days are numbered. He's only there long enough to continue raising Samuel in the ways of the Lord to become a prophet of God. And one night, Samuel lays down to go to bed. At first it said Eli went and laid down to go to sleep where he usually did. We don't know where that is, where he usually did. But then the Bible becomes very detailed and clear about where Samuel went and laid down. He went and laid down where the ark of God was. Later on, that would not be allowed. Only the high priest should go into that small tented area, the most holy place where the Ark of the Covenant is, that thing that represented the very presence of God. Samuel, as a little boy, seemingly the whole priesthood thing is in complete disarray at that point. Eli is completely he's lost as a priest at that point, knowing his days are numbered. There is nothing, no rules or regulations being adhered to. And the Bible said that God really was no longer even speaking to man. There was just this distance, this gap between God and man. Nobody was listening for God anymore. Nobody heard God. God even stopped speaking because nobody was listening. But Samuel goes and he lays down and he hears a voice. There in that place where the presence of God is supposed to be, but it's no longer there. He lays down in that place in front of the ark and he hears the voice say, Samuel? Samuel? Sammy jumps up and he runs and he finds Eli, the priest, and he says, yes, what do you want? And Eli says, I didn't call you. Go back to bed. And he went back, the Bible says, to that place where the ark was, and he laid back down to try to sleep. And the voice speaks again and says, Samuel. He jumps up and he goes back to Eli and he says, yes, what do you want? Eli says, I didn't call you. Go to bed. Samuel went back and he laid down, and a third time the voice says, Samuel. Samuel jumps up again and he goes to Eli and he says, yes, what do you want? At this point, it begins to click. And the past comes back to Eli, and he remembers the days when God was intimate and he would speak. And though Eli has not heard the voice of God in a long time, he knows what's going on. He says, son, go back and lay down. And the next time you hear your name called, say, yes, Lord. What do you want? Eli finally decided to teach Samuel what my mother was teaching me, to become sensitive to the voice of God, to become aware of the call of God in your life. When God called his name again, he said, yes, Lord, what do you want? And God began to speak to him, and he began to direct him in his first prophetic actions as a very young boy. And of course, Samuel grew up to be a great, great prophet. My mom was teaching me to become aware. He's going to call you, Scotty. He's going to speak to you. You've got to become aware of it. You've got to begin to recognize his voice, recognize the signs of God. Remember in the garden when Adam fell and he was hiding, camouflaging himself in the fig leaves? And God came to look for him, to walk with him in the cool of the day. And the Bible says, and God heard, and Adam heard the sound of God walking in the garden. That's what my mom was trying to teach me. Here in the garden, the very soul of man that Solomon would teach us is that the garden of God is something inside of us. And my mother was trying to teach me to hear the sound of God when he began to walk in my garden and call me.